Ready. Jody Carrington. Do you want like my phone name? I am Jody Lynn Carrington, mom. Dr. Jody, the best fucking wife on the planet. Viking, Alberta, Canada. Old Alberta, Canada. Wanting. Ready. Roller coaster, hot mess. Fucking amazing. There, all those words, like it had a like hyphen to it. Okay, so it's basically one word. Empathy. To the power to heal. I think that it is a gift in this moment to be able to stay regulated in a time of disconnect. And I feel like it's the greatest gift ever, and I better use it. It means guiding tiny humans to be better than the one doing the guiding. That I don't guide them well, that I do. I don't think it's something I don't think we started it on purpose. I think it's I feel like it's a gift. Like I just feel like some days I wake up and I don't know how I got here. But I feel really lucky that we are. And I think that, that always that thing about to whom much is given, much is expected. And so I think that it is really a gift that we're allowed to give to everybody else. I would say everything. It gives me hope and inspiration and humility. A kick in the ass quite frequently, and the ability to show my children what it means to be a powerful woman. I hope that there's a legacy that is left by this message with this team that can not only change lives but save them. That's my biggest hope, and I it's not even a hope. I know it will. That's the truth. They are so remarkably different, but I would say the best thing that ever happened to me. I think that, again, they keep me humble. Just when I get cocky, they all remind me that they should have chose a different mom, which it's fine. But what was the question? I think I want to just change the difference, I think, between looking and seeing. Like really understanding the importance of and the inexplicable power of really noticing people, because I think it's life-saving, because we need it now more than ever. You know what? I don't have a favorite food. Do you know what I do have? It depends who I'm eating it with. If I'm eating it with my favorite people, it's anything. Again, I would drink anything, but it's more about who I'm with. We're all just walking each other home. Also my favorite of all time. Atlas of the Heart right now. I also just finished Will, which was amazing to me. But I think of all time, I still think it's Daring Greatly. Teachers These Days is a book for teachers that I think is going to change the world. And because I think teachers do some of the most important work on the planet. The next book, which is at this point called Don't Look Away, is really about looking and seeing. And that's the thing that I think I'm most excited about these days. Look out. Oh, shit, I have to go. Okay. Wake up to the world you've been missing. Time to jump out of bed in the morning. No day, no life, now we're living. Can you feel it in the air that you're breathing? Time to show 'em what you're made of. Let's get back on track. Are you ready for a come on? Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Are you ready now? You're lifting off the ground. Welcome back. No coming down. Can you feel it all around? Welcome back. Look at you saucy bitches.
Can you fucking believe it? Huh? Woo! Oh my, listen, thank you so much for being here tonight.
700 people brave enough to be in the same room together is, first of all, amazing to me, okay? First of all, oh my goodness. We are gonna do a lot of fun things tonight, but can I just tell you like how fucking crazy this is? There are people who flew here from Ontario. Breaking glass is in the house, ladies and gentlemen. And Manitoba, where's my Manitoba people? Come on! And somebody's birthday? There's birthdays everywhere. There's people that are like, you know, we're just gonna come and get drunk because... And some people have been here since Friday so they don't miss it. They're like, is this a weekend thing? Yes, that's what we told our husbands. All weekend. Fucking all weekend. Might go into Monday. I got to tell you tonight, it means so much to me that you would be brave enough to come back into this room, and you know that we are taping this because for many people this is a scary thing to do, given what we've been through in the last 2.5 years. It's fucking foggy up here, isn't it? Is that what happens when you're a big shooter? They turn on the fucking fog machines? That's what they were saying. It'll look good with the lights in your hair. I mean, oh, it's okay. It's good. Really, right? Okay. I think that, I mean, our team is here tonight. Anybody in any one of our shirts, if you need anything, I know this is a scary time to be in a room full of people. If you need to wear a mask, if you need to take a break, if you need to go outside, please do all of those things. We want to make sure that everything that we talk about, it means that there'll be a safe place to land for you. Okay, so that you can't tell people how to do that, you gotta show them, yeah? And this is sort of what we're gonna talk about so much tonight, is this idea of feeling seen. And I think that so much about what we're up against right now means we're in the middle of a big mess. And I gotta tell you something, before we step into this too much tonight, I want you to know a couple of things are gonna happen. You can't address what you don't acknowledge. And so many people were saying to me today, I can't wait to laugh, I can't wait to go and have a good time. Here's the bad news, I'm gonna rip your fucking souls out. So when I was reading that feedback, they're like, oh, it's gonna be so uplifting, we can't wait, we should have a drink, it's gonna be so relaxing. I was like, oh, listen, bitch. And I promise we'll get there. But here's the biggest mistake that we make sometimes, right? You can't address what you don't acknowledge. You can't address what you don't know. And we make such a big mistake right now, I think, about wanting to Mary Poppins the ever-loving fuck out of everything, yeah? We're good. It's good, we're good, you're good, we're good. Kids are resilient, they'll be fine, they're good. You know what, we're good. It's good. Let's get back to normal, okay? It's gonna be fine. So here's the problem, it's not. It's not fine. And it's not gonna be fine in so many ways. And so what I wanna give you the heads up around is we're gonna go deep into a bit of abyss together. I promise you, this is my promise to you, I will bring you out the other side, okay? But what I want you to do tonight, I'm so grateful that you would, I wanna make sure that you leave here tonight understanding, I think, the most important message of this team, which is we are one by one needed to make this reconnection revolution happen. This is not gonna be the responsibility of a senior leader. This is not gonna be the responsibility of a prime minister or a premier or a CEO or a superintendent or, you also don't need to, you'll meet amazing people, one amazing person tonight in particular. You don't need to have a company, you don't need to have a life-changing non-for-profit. It's up to you and me to do the next best right kind thing. And really what you need is a heartbeat. And I think that tonight we have been through collectively more than you can ever understand. And when I talked to the team today and I said, in this room tonight, statistically, there will be 12 people with a plan to end their life. 12. And there's no fixing that. There's no, here's the 5 things I want you to do. No amount of therapy sometimes can fix that. It is you and me doing the next best right kind thing. See, because I can see somebody in therapy for the rest of their lives, every week, gold standard service, and it's not gonna fucking matter if they go out into our community and everybody's too tired to look and see. Yeah? And so what we're gonna talk a lot about tonight is feeling seen, and you cannot address this unless you acknowledge how we got here. And so I want to tell you a little bit about the ramifications of what I think the pandy is gonna mean at this time in our life. I like to call it the pandy, okay? Because I'm really kind of tired of this bitch, because for so many reasons, I'm grateful to her, you know what I mean? Because she has really orchestrated a whole different way of operating that I've never considered before. I would have never opened my practice to virtual work before, never. Because I truly believe that face-to-face connection matters more than anything. I would never offer a virtual PD across this country, never, no, either, listen, I don't think I can really connect with your people. I think it'd be a waste of your time to do that. So I would much rather be in person. If that's not fit for you, then that's okay. Now, I think about all the benefits to that process, how we can train people around the globe in this idea of trauma-informed, relationship-focused practice. I think about how amazing that is, that I would have never considered that a possibility before, yeah? And so, but what I think I want to dig into just a little bit, so we're going to try this thing. We're going to try this thing. Now, I think cool people do this all the time. You've seen this Slido shit where you poll the audience? Huh? Okay, watch this. Huh? So, the question is to you, how was your pandemic? In a word, you take your little phones out, that's what you do, and you screenshot that bitch. You see the, not screenshot it. You get the QR code. I want you to give me one word that describes your pandemic. Do the best you can with what you got. If it's not working, it's okay. It's okay. Sit quietly. Lonely. All right, so it's working a little bit for somebody. So the idea with these programs, which I think is really fantastic, is it's a narrative analysis of what is happening in this room. So I cannot wait to use this with my first responders, because oftentimes we won't talk about what we think, but we'll put it on an anonymous phone. Nobody knows who this is connected to, yeah? It is like a narrative analysis, because the more times people say a certain word, the bigger it becomes on the screen. And if we take a look at what people say about, in a word, describe for me what your pandemic has been like, what do you see? Exhausting and lonely and confusing and depressing. Exhausting is a pretty powerful word, yeah? How much access do you have to kindness and empathy and compassion when you're exhausted? Like, and not just tired, right? People could have said tired, and some of you did. What's the difference between when I say this to you, tired, I'm tired, versus I am exhausted? When we talk about things like roller coaster, and other people will say life-changing, anxious, profitable, okay. I like it. Here's the other thing that becomes really difficult, is if it's okay for you, we don't want to say it. Because it also becomes a little bit difficult, because we know how many people have struggled in a time of disconnect. So if it's actually been okay, we're like, no, fuck, it's really bad. It's really bad too, it's really bad, yeah? And so it becomes this really disconnecting process, I think, sometimes. And what I love so much about this process is, I mean, take a look at those words. You are sitting in a room of people who, for all intents and purposes, have done their very best to navigate through the last 2.5 years to the best of your ability. And here's what I want you to know. Everybody you're sitting beside tonight has the potential to be better than they've ever been if we allow this season of reset to remind us about what really matters. And I'm going to tell you how, for me, it has been, I think, I love all of those words because it's been all of those things for me. And our team has fallen apart and went back together so many fucking times. I often wondered if this was worth it. I said to Marty many times, I think we're making a huge mistake. I don't think this is the time to do this work. I think people aren't ready. I don't know if we should. It was easier when we didn't have, like, what if all of these things, my babies, my husband, how do you do this as a woman? How do you, blah, 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 blah. And I think what's interesting to me about this is that there's so much disconnect when we have such big negative emotion. Like the majority of those words are, they don't lead to connection. They don't lead to looking and seeing. They lead to this idea of disconnect, yeah? And I think it's the fundamental issue that we face right now is really around disconnection. And I found this quote by Sonia Sanas not very long ago, and I have heard so many people say to me, I feel invisible. I feel like everything is moving and I'm not a part of it. I feel like I can't, if I can tell you how many people have been in my office and said, you know what, I think I got the dementia. I said, what do you mean? I have Alzheimer's. I said, okay, well, you're 36 or 42 or whatever the deal is. Like, I mean, it's a possibility. We're not going to rule it out. And P.S., I'm not a medical doctor, but we can talk about it. And so many people say, I can't remember things. I forget what I was doing yesterday. That's not like me. And you know what else? I don't fucking like people. I want to throat punch everybody. And they have, like, and they do it sort of like there is this slow down of like, does your husband chew? Loudly when he eats? Like, does he? I'm just questioning that. Like, I mean, I don't really want to say anything when I was like, fuck off, you know? And we have this sense, particularly, I mean, many of us, I spend a lot of time with teachers, I spend a lot of time with first responders, people who enter into their profession because they have big, huge, fat hearts. And at one point in their life, they had every belief that they could make a big difference in this world, right? And they're like, God, it's not like awesome to go into the staff room and be like, I want to fucking throw punch that dad. And so it becomes really isolating and lonely because typically that's not how you want to open, you know, your staff meeting. And see, we know this to be true in so many ways. You have to name it to tame it. Dan Siegel said that. You have to name it to tame it. It's not that, listen, I will tell you as a psychologist, emotion will not kill you, but not talking about it might. PTSD, depression, anxiety, it won't kill you. But having nowhere to put it does. And when we've never, ever been this disconnected in the history of the free world, what I am so concerned about is the mental health pandemic that we are fixing to step into. And I will tell you the heart of it all for me. If you've ever heard me speak before, you know that I love this concept of emotional regulation. And I will tell you it's the premise of everything that I talk about is becoming much more everything that I think needs to be true in this world. Definition of emotional regulation means how not to lose your friggin' mind. We put a high emphasis on this culture, in this culture, on people who are calm. We like it best when you can use your words. We like it best when you are nice, and you are connected, and children. I mean, we've all been raised in this place. Kids need to be seen and not heard. We like it best when our husbands are calm. I don't like it when he's losing his fucking mind. He's out there. He couldn't figure out how to run the POS system. Marty! Here's the number one reason why you don't come on the road. Because you can't talk to Marty like she's a heifer, okay? When we are emotionally dysregulated, we lose access to the best parts of ourselves, okay? And historically, when we see dysregulation, we want to stop it and we want to fix it because it's scary. It is very scary when people are emotionally dysregulated, particularly if we love them. So we want to do everything we can to get them calm down. If you're a teacher, this is like this, like this. Okay? I don't like it when you're dysregulated, okay? And the truth about this is we are at our best selves when we are regulated, okay? So when you look at your children, for those of you who have your own personal children, when you look at your children and they are calm and using their words and being kind in their manners, that's who you're raising. Those are your babies. That's what you're doing. When they get dysregulated, that is their job. Because here's the trick around emotional regulation. The chaos is necessary to learn the calm. The chaos is necessary to learn the calm. There's no way around it. You have to go through it. When we get dysregulated, we need somewhere to put it. Because if we just keep sucking it up, if we just say, boys don't cry, if we just say, we're good, you're good, we're good, it's good, we're good, we're good, we're fine, it's good, good. Children are resilient, we're good, you're good, we're so good. That's fine. The problem is it'll eat you from the inside out. So the issue isn't, can we handle hard things? Can we handle a global pandemic? Yes! Can we handle physical illness and emotional illness? Yes. We are wired to do hard things. We survive war and famine and disruption. We bury our own children. We are wired to do hard things, but we were never, ever meant to do any of it alone. For the primary reason that we need somebody to walk us through it when we doubt it. I'm a fuck up as a mom. I'm not gonna survive this cancer diagnosis. I don't know if I'm making the right choices. We were never meant to sort of miss those moments. Those are not bad experiences. Those emotionally dysregulated places are as beautiful as the joy and the belly laughs. But they feel so bad, so we try to avoid them. We try to fix them. We don't make sense enough of this place of emotional regulation. We would say, let's hold space for it. We're not good at that, you see? And this idea of wanting to fix it has always been there. You see, historically, we've always wanted to fix bad behavior or behavior that is not becoming of each other. And we will all make bad choices. Yeah, we're all gonna fuck it up. We're all gonna say things that we don't mean. But we will all make choices in our lives, right, where we may regret them horrifically. We may wish we could take words or actions back. We will all do that. None of us in here are saints. The issue is, what do we do with that dysregulation that matters? And historically, this has been the age-old question, you understand, is how do we help people stay calm? How do we get back to this regulated state that we put such a high priority on? And I will take you back to this idea of behaviorism, which was the answer, first and foremost, 2 generations ago to how we get people to be calm, okay? My forefathers of psychology, Watson and Skinner, the boys, they were sitting around, similar to the questions we have today. The boys were sitting around having a beer, saying to each other, shit, how do we help people make good choices? And one fella said to the other fella, look what happens when you shock a rat. Well, son of a bitch. It stops doing the thing you don't want it to do. And then the other fellow said, look what happens when you feed a pigeon colored water. When you reward the bird, it does more of that behavior. So let's do this with children. Let's create an entire justice system based on reward and consequences, huh? That's a good idea. It works so good with rats. And the problem with the strict behavioral model, the first problem with the strict behavioral model, trying to get people to stay regulated, here's the biggest fucking problem with it all. It works. If I have a big enough stick, I can get anybody to comply. But we never ask the rat or the pigeon, what does it leave you with? How do you feel about the shocker guy? When you're frolicking in your rat cage and the next day the shocker guy comes in and you're like, whoa, fucking A! Hi, shocker guy! No, you're like this, ah! You're in an emotionally dysregulated state and you are complying. Huh? We measured only behavioral outcomes, not what happened in relationship. And here's the problem, okay? 2 generations ago, when we started to embed our systems in this philosophical practice, we didn't realize that one thing was inherent in all of this research. We didn't measure it because we didn't know any different. It's proximity. We had relationship much more embedded in those practices just 2 generations ago. And we are continuing to practice with those best practices in a world that no longer exists. Because if you think about just 2 generations ago, what was the square footage of the house that your grandfather was raised in? And the square footage of the house that we raise our babies, what's the difference? Huh? There's this beautiful piece of research that would say, our great-grandparents and our grandparents looked at their children 72% more of the time than we look at our babies. 72! And I think about this all the time. I wrote about it in Kids these days. It's like, if I think about the square footage house, even that my dad grew up in, okay? And he's not that old, he's 70-something. 1. Maybe 2. Like 700 square feet, 1 bedroom, didn't have a TV, didn't have a running toilet. This is my children's grandfather. Right? Like, this is not the olden days. And I think about how much time in the run of an evening, what you would have to do with your 3 siblings and your spouse. What were your options? Crib. You played a lot of fucking cards, didn't you? You just hoped to Jesus and neighbors would come over. And you played a lot of cards. What happens when you play cards with somebody? You look at them, you make food. You're like, you're fucking cheating. I'm watching you, okay? Stop, don't, go, quit fighting. Get your, When we think about the ability to look and see, it becomes so critically important, this idea of emotional regulation. Because the only way that I learn that I matter, the only way that somebody can help me calm down most efficiently is when they are in my same physical presence. In fact, we're biologically wired for this, yeah? Our babies come to us dysregulated. They have 3 choices to let us know what they need: fight, flight, and freeze. When you bring a baby home from the hospital, how does it let you know what it needs? It cries, it loses its friggin' mind. Yeah? Because that's its job. The job of big people falls into this whole phenomenon that became so clear to me when I read the quote by Ram Dass that says this: we are all just here walking each other home. We are all just here walking each other home. And so when I think about the job of little people is to lose their friggin' mind, what's the job of big people? To walk them home. And if I were to put a crying infant in any one of your arms, okay, regardless of race, religion, socioeconomic status, gender identity, if you are a Russian soldier tonight, if you live in Afghanistan, if you're in Beirut, if you're in France, if you're in Cochrane, You guys have had some beers because I say Cochrane and you're like, how about Climax? You're welcome. Okay. Regardless of where you are on this planet in this moment, if you came upon a crying infant and you were alone, you would be hard-pressed to walk by. You would pick up that baby and you would do your ever best to regulate. You would engage in a rhythmic exchange. Anywhere on this planet, there is a rhythmic exchange that happens, okay? So even if you're alone, I watch this with first responders when they're first on scene and there's a kid involved. The first thing is to scoop them up. My personal husband with our children, he's much more comfortable with cows than he is with kids. He would grab... But there's a rhythmic exchange that happens, yeah? Universally. Why? The first sound that any one of us felt on this planet was the heartbeat of our mothers. Bum, 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 bum. And whether she is alive or whether or not you have a relationship with her, that was the initial gift of emotional regulation that we all start out with. Many fundamental spiritual practices are not practiced with words. They're practiced with sounds. Drumming, chanting, humming, praying, meditating happen because when I regulate the internal core of my brain, I am at my best self. And the more dysregulated I become, the more things I worry about and I get anxious and overwhelmed, I lose my ability to regulate to that core, yeah? And we know that if there's enough people surrounding an infant to walk them home, they will begin to learn how to regulate on their own when we're not there, yeah? So historically, it's interesting to me that just 2 generations ago, the access to big people was more frequent, yeah, more available. Even if they were dysregulated, even if they didn't have the words, they had the physical presence, which was more important than what you say to me, yeah? Now, being able to say something has become remarkably more important in the last 2 generations because we've lost proximity. And see, that's where we're in trouble, particularly our men, you see, because people say this to me all the time. My dad used to just look at me and I'd be like, And now, dads and grandpas say to me, I look at my kids like this, and they go, what? And so then the question to me comes, are kids these days assholes? No. In fact, I've told you this I've told many of you this many times. I've assessed and treated over 1,000 kids in this country, and I've never, not one time, met a bad kid. Not one time. But the longer I do this work, the more dysregulated kids are becoming. And it becomes really difficult to understand when we are embedded in this behavioral program of school and justice systems and parenting, why kids are continuing to kill themselves at higher rates than we've ever seen them before. Why is the highest rate of suicide in this country middle-aged men? Because you have to name it to tame it. We need the ability to look and see, and if in 2 generations we've massively went from we have dinners together, our evenings are spent together, if somebody dies, we all come together, to suddenly being in this place where we have all these technological advances, which are phenomenal. Let me be clear, technological advances are not the problem, okay? So I get this all the time, it's the fucking Grand Theft Auto. No, it's not. It's the TikTok. No. Health-related technological interventions are one of the best things that I am so grateful for in this lifetime. I hope that pancreatic cancer is obliterated or breast cancer is obliterated because of technological advances in my lifetime. The question isn't, Are they the problem? The issue is how we use them. Because the hardest thing we will ever do, this is ironic to me, the hardest thing we will ever do is look into the eyes of the people we love. Isn't that something? Looking at somebody you love is one of the hardest asks that I could get any of you to do. And it's fascinating to me, you see, because we're wired for connection, so we need that shit. But it also becomes much more comfortable the more you mean to me. And when we had less exit ramps 2 generations ago, 3 generations ago, think about the size of the bed that your grandparents slept in. Huh? If you had a knockdown shoot 'em out, you try to give somebody a silent treatment, you know what I mean? My personal husband and I, we have a king-size bed, okay? There are many times I don't even fucking know if he's there. And the other thing that happens to many of us is when Aaron and I got married, we said we would never have a TV in our bedroom, right? This is the place where we need to always look at each other and make sure that we're connected before we fall asleep. Guess what? We still don't have a TV in our bedroom. Guess what we have? Netflix! The biggest disconnector, marital disconnector of all time, okay? Because when the issue is, the hardest thing is to look at each other, and I have so many great exit ramps that I feel justified to sink into, okay? After I single-handedly save children in the run of a day. You understand? I coached hockey. I wanted to throw punch some fucking dad who thought he was gonna make it to the dub and he didn't, so now his kid's gonna get on every shift. Fuck you. And I'm trying to run a company, not fuck up people. I'm trying to be a good mom, where my children say to me all the time, there is a mother better than you, her name's Mary. I was like, you know what, this fucking Catholic thing gotta go. And when all of those things are on my plate in the run of a day, do you know what I don't wanna do when I come home to my family? I don't want to talk to them. I don't want anybody to be dysregulated. I don't want anybody to have a problem, or they didn't get along with somebody at school. For fuck's sake, then be nicer, okay? I sat on the buddy bench, nobody sat beside me. Did you look, were you approachable? Aaron says to me, I just don't know. I don't know if I can make a difference in the world of agriculture. What? Please tell me he's still at the merch table. The idea is, when I'm dysregulated, I have very little to give away. And so at the end of the day, what I want to do, I feel very justified. And now that I have multiple exit ramps, I feel quite comfortable to lay beside my personal husband with my own personal Netflix and figure out how to launder money in the Ozarks. Okay? And he's on a bit of a different page. He's trying to figure out how to cook meth in Breaking Bad. But we are at different places in our respective Netflix shows, and we have procreated enough already to make the next generation viable, so we high five. We have never been more disconnected because we can be. And when the hardest thing we will ever do is to look at the people we love, and we have multiple exit ramps, it becomes so easy to do it, yeah? And so there is this concept that has become so interesting to me around feeling seen. That has happened again and again and again and again. And I'm so like, listen, I gotta tell you this, okay? So Kids These Days, I wrote Kids These Days because we started speaking across only this province. And people would say to me, hey, can you put this in a book? So I transcribed a one-day session that I did for some school in Edmonton, and that became Kids These Days, okay? So I edited it, we self-published out of our, how do you call the thing? Garage. And Marty and I schlepped books across most of Alberta and southern Saskatchewan. And it became a Canadian bestseller. And so then a little publisher picked it up. Could you do Teachers These Days? Yes, absolutely we could. This is the big thing. And Teachers These Days became an Amazon bestseller in the first 24 hours. And then HarperCollins called. And they said, so they're a national publisher, which again, when I was starting to write Kids These Days, I was like, how do you pitch to a publisher? It's the hardest thing you can ever do. They get millions of books every day, and they say no to 99.9% of them. And so when Marty said, listen, I think HarperCollins wants to have a meeting with you. Okay. So I got this call with this team of 4 from HarperCollins in Toronto, which feels very fancy. And they said, can you write a book that we think the world needs right now? And I was like, yeah. And they said, what would it be about? If you could write anything, right, what would it be about? And I said, it would really be about a reconnection revolution that needs to happen yesterday. And that it is the responsibility of everybody who would ever be brave enough to pick up that book. I want to convince them that they have everything they need in that moment to do it. And they were like, okay. Okay. And it honestly, I cannot even tell you, it was as easy as that. They said, then write it. Okay. So we are on the 4th draft. It has changed titles. You saw in the beginning of this, the working title when we made that video was Don't Look Away. The title of this 3rd book that launches in December is now called Feeling Seen. And I'm gonna read an excerpt from it. Okay, so, oh, Jesus. Just gotta hide me Spanx. There's a couple of sets in here, so if I pop out, you're gonna fucking know it. Okay. You wanna know? Okay, so this, I'm going to tell you, is a little bit around, I think, one of the biggest things that I hope we can start to talk about tonight. So this is going to take me about 5 minutes. We timed it. So if you feel like it keeps going on and on and on, don't worry. There's a fucking end to it, okay? But I want you to, and then we're going to unpack it real quick. Okay, so this is, I think, from the 2nd chapter. So many of us, you and me both, were raised in this place of strict behaviorism. The idea that if you make a good choice, you get rewarded. If you don't make a good choice, you get punished. That's how I was raised, and for most people who I know, that's how they were raised too. In fact, the philosophical practice is still very much alive in the judicial system, our education system, and for sure the way that I was trained as a psychologist not many years ago. So much a part of punishment or consequence has elements of shame and humiliation. If we think about the criminal justice system, for example, you are exiled to jail or given a mark intended to shame. In our classrooms, in our schools, you are shunned in an effort to get you to be kind again when we suspend you. The thought, I think, was that these awful feelings would be the motivators to snap the transgressor out of it and be more like the others who weren't making such bad choices. But why do we send kids to rooms or suspend them? What do we think is going to happen when they're hanging out there in these places, often alone? That they're going to have a sudden epiphany and think, well, son of a gun, guess I'm going to try harder to be nicer. It's so dumb. Shame is indeed one of the most powerful emotions we feel. And sadly, it doesn't take much to evoke it in another. when somebody makes a bad choice, and we will all do that, there needs to be some retribution. There needs to be some consequence. We are really sliding sometimes to this completely other side where like everybody gets a fucking medal. There needs to be a place where we don't just say, we're good, it's fine. So particularly if your resources are thin or your confidence is low, shame is powerful. Brene Brown, I don't know if you've heard of her, says this. Shame is the fear of disconnection. I was like, when I first read that, I was like, what are you talking about? It's the fear that something we've done or failed to do, okay? So we've slapped somebody on the Oscar stage. We've had an affair. We have hit our kid. We have done something that is so remarkably heartbreaking to us. It is the fear that something we've done or failed to do, an ideal we've not lived up to, or a goal that we've not accomplished makes us unworthy of connection. Of course, connection is so powerful, so much so that we need it like air. But we'd forego relationships if we feel shame. We would miss huge opportunities, go broke, risk losing everything at the expense of shame. So this definition makes sense. The intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love, belonging, and connection. Just imagine what happens to your ability to look and see another when you are full of shame. In fact, more shame or humiliation just makes people more ill, resistant, and sometimes even more dangerous. It's often powerful enough to halt an undesirable behavior. That's kind of why we started it, right? Because it works. However, it doesn't make anyone learn their lesson or magically desire to be better. If you think about, and I'll tell you this right now, I mean, in the Bowdoin Institution, miles up the road, people who have made really bad choices sitting there by themselves, do you think at one point they're going, you know what, fuck it, I need to be better? It becomes very difficult to believe you're worthy when we treat you like you're not. And I found this fascinating. Shame is highly correlated with addiction and mental health issues like depression and eating disorders. So tell me, why do we continue to employ these tactics when shaping behavior of people we hope will either grow, like students, serve, like police officers, or heal, like prisoners? The answer, if I can offer a solution, lives in the strategic combination of empathy and guilt. In that order. Seeking first to understand, not necessarily condone, seeking first to understand, acknowledging, holding space first, often allows for the guilt that often comes back into play once emotional regulation takes over. When we are regulated, none of us want to hurt another. Punishing isn't the solution. Getting back to a place where we can feel guilt and then atone for our actions is a path, ironically maybe, paved by empathy. As Brown says, empathy and then guilt work together to create a force that is both adaptive and powerful. Guilt, you see, is often necessary when we've done wrong by another or when we've made a choice that we are disappointed in. Guilt is a much more powerful and adaptive emotion than shame and far less damaging. You can't tell someone how to feel guilt, however, but leading them there is often most swiftly accomplished by empathy. It has taken me a long time to understand the necessity of the shift to seeing most every behavioral interaction through the eyes of emotional regulation. In fact, I spent a lot of time in my career trying to understand behavior and not nearly enough time trying to get to the emotion that always, in all ways, drives the behavior. I have a huge understanding of how difficult it will be to begin to think differently, or what it might take to help organizations who have always done it this way shift their thinking. I don't think we can tell them. I think we must show them. And if we only knew that we have everything we already need in this room, I think this would be easier to do than we anticipate. I think right now more than ever, we must call for a dramatic paradigm shift, a shift to reconnecting on purpose. Hey! I think it's going to be good. And so the title has moved from this idea of don't look away to feeling seen, because I think it has very little to do with eye contact. Although eye contact is so powerful, there's cultural differences, and babies, or not babies, but people who are on the autism spectrum struggle significantly. But listen, every culture across this planet makes eye contact a socially reference in some capacity. But it is so much bigger than this idea of eye contact, and how we reconnect on purpose really is going to be so hard. I want you to try to make eye contact with somebody in this room. Don't look at me, fuckers. Look at each other. Okay, so we have just spent an hour talking about the importance of eye contact, and I said, just look at somebody in the room. This is what happened. Or you're like, ah. Brenda Glass, she is such a Dr. Jody disciple. She's like, and sometimes when you know your job, you're like, fucking put me in. You want me to look at people? I'll fucking look at people. But generally speaking, this remains one of the hardest things we will ever do. Look and see, yeah? Part of this process really must involve some grace. Because even when you're ready for a night of reconnection, even when you're like, I want to be better and do better and I want to blah, 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 all those things, it becomes really difficult to know that you have to do it, or you should do it, or I want to get better at it, yeah? And I think Schwartz wrote this beautiful book called There's No Bad Parts, right? So sometimes we hate this about ourselves, that we have trouble, public speaking, or we have trouble looking at the people we love, or like, God, why am I such an asshole? Or why don't I be nicer? Or like, I hate the way that I think about things like this, or I wish I could talk to people differently like that, yeah? Listen, there are no bad parts of you. There are ways that have developed over years and generations often based on our ancestors' experience about how we show up in this world and why we do what we do, yeah? There's no bad parts to it. It's like many times they served a purpose historically, and all we want to ask is, do they serve that purpose now? Is it safe enough to start to look again? Even just a little bit. Because I think one of the things that becomes so critical to me is this idea of acknowledgement. And so I will tell you this story really quick, because I think this has changed my life. When you are acknowledged, you rise. And I am, as many of you know, grew up in Viking, Alberta, Canada. Home of the Sutters, home of the Kinsella gravel pits, where I drank excessively trying to get married to a Sutter, but it didn't work out, so I had to make it on my own. It's fine. And it is also largely white, straight, able-bodied, and very racist. And I will tell you that when you are not exposed to people who don't look like you, sound like you, talk like you, you think you're the best. It's the fundamental premise of colonialism. And I will tell you this, I have a fucking PhD, and 3 years ago I put orange shirts on my kid and I didn't know why. I just didn't want them to stand out, yeah? I do not understand the history of this country to the degree that I should. And for the last 5 years, I spoke across this country, and I've heard many times, I've sat through, I'll tell you this with all embarrassment in my heart, I've sat through many land acknowledgements. I have heard people say many times as I've sat beside them as they do a land acknowledgement,
How many times do we have to do this? We've already apologized, okay?
I have heard people acknowledge lands and they butchered the names of the land on which they were acknowledging because they couldn't take the time to get it right. Can you imagine, huh? Somebody you love, George, your brother George, is killed tragically next week, and you go to the funeral, and the funeral director stands up and says, "We're here to remember Jorge." And you're like, "Who the fuck is Jorge?" And he's like, "That's how I say it." So here's the interesting thing around acknowledgement, okay? The definition of acknowledgement, which is, I think, really the answer that we all need to understand, or that I think not understand, but I think it's the key to so many things. And acknowledgement isn't two things, but it must be one. It is not an apology. Think about how ludicrous this sounds. Sorry for the cultural genocide. We good? We good? I mean, they asked the Pope to do it 2 days ago, and it holds weight when it's genuine. But the act of acknowledgement is just that. It is an act of. It is not an apology. And we think about this, you know, when we say this to our first responders, right? Sorry for doing your job. Sorry that you have to go to burning buildings. Sorry as a teacher you have to care for tiny humans who will tell you to fuck off frequently. Sorry. We're not looking for apologies, but we mistake acknowledgement with apology all the time. It's not an apology. And listen, when we want to apologize, it's because we want to regulate emotion that we can't live with. The mere thought that people among us are residential school survivors, that there's still bodies buried of babies in this country. You can't get to reconciliation if you don't know the fucking truth. But we want to fix it. When we know or are married to RCMP officers who have had to extricate kids who were part of apprehending babies to take them to institutions, we want to make it better. Sorry, okay? We're good? It's good. Are we good? We're good. We're good. The intention is beautiful. We don't like it when people, humans, are hurting. So we want to fix it. But the ask many times for you and me isn't a fix, isn't a solution, isn't a strategy. When you have an exhausting day at work and you come home and you say, "I'm just so tired," you don't want somebody to be like, "Okay, listen, did you go for a run? Okay? Maybe you should stop fucking complaining, okay? And journal." What I want is somebody to hold space, but see, the more you mean to me or the bigger the atrocity, the more I want to fix it, huh? It is never, ever a one-shot deal. When we say this, how many times is it ever going to be enough? Man, this is the stuff we have to sit with. Because it is never enough. You and I, we always want to be acknowledged genuinely. If you're frolicking out in the Red Deer area and somebody says to you, they come up to you at a hockey rink and they're like, "Oh my God, Brenda, can I talk to you for a second? Tannis, can I talk to you for a second? I just got to tell you," they use your name, yeah? "I just got to tell you, your son is amazing. I don't know, Mama, what you're doing, but that kid, you're doing something right." What happens to you? First of all, if it's your kid, you want to actually confirm they got the kid right, because it's really bad if they're like, "Oh shit, sorry, I thought you were somebody else." It's fine. So once you've confirmed that they got the kid right, you're like, "His name's Brett?" You're like, I know who he is. He was at my house yesterday, Mom. I'm so grateful my kids are friends with him because he's got a good head on his shoulders. Then two things happen, okay? You lean in and your voice drops a couple of octaves. "Oh, I like your hoodie. Do you guys like craft beer? Like, do you guys want to come over or anything? Like, we could barbecue." I always say this is how affairs start in minor hockey, okay? Your kid's amazing. It's a fucking problem, I'm telling you. So when it's genuine, we live for it. It's not an apology, and it's never a one-shot deal. Think about this. In this culture, currently, weddings are meant to celebrate the acknowledgement of love between two people. So if you've ever been to one, if you are in one, if you've done it a couple of times, pick your favorite. But generally what happens is two people get up and acknowledge their love for each other, yeah? Usually Jesus is there, the creator, and you're dressed up with fancy, you got a midnight lunch, okay? And music, and if there's an open bar and it was in the paper, everybody from the high school comes to help you celebrate and strom. And here's what happens. One fella says that to the other fella, I love you, for better, for worse, you're amazing, and everything like that. And the other fella says, me too, forever and ever, okay? Okay. What if that was a one-shot deal? What if 2 days later, one fella said to the other fella, hey, I'm just checking, do you still love me? And the other fella was like, how many times do we have to do this? Look at your ring, it's a symbol. It is never enough to know that we matter because we're wired for connection. And the more armored up we become, the less we give it away. The more disconnected we become, the harder it is to know that we matter. And so this actually doesn't have much to do with anybody else. It has a lot to do with you and me. Because we are at our best, we have the best ability to reconnect to the people we love if we look after us first. So an acknowledgement is not a one-shot deal. It is never enough. It's not an apology, and it must be genuine. So I will tell you that everything I created for you today, every book I ever write, happened on Treaty 7 land, which is home of the Blackfoot Confederacy, and it is made up of the Siksika, the Kainai, the Piikani, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, the Stoney Nakoda First Nation, and the Métis Nation Region 3. I have spent my life serving kids who are significantly emotionally dysregulated in the system that is Child and Family Services. 75% of those babies are Indigenous in this province, and they make up 10% of our population. It is my privilege to raise my babies on a land where so much sacrifice was made before I got here. And if our ask is to simply acknowledge each other, to look and see, then we're the people. I'm your girl, put me in. Because when you're acknowledged, you rise. And people say, so many of the time, is it just that simple? I want to show you a little video of, it's going to be quick. This is an experiment that happened in 2015. I often talk about Anand's research out of Singapore called the 4 Minutes of Connection, okay? And the simple ask by Anand was that anybody you love, sit with them and just look at them for 4 minutes. People are like, pfft. Here's what's interesting to me about that, yeah? The people we love the most are the hardest to give it to. The people we love the most are the hardest to give it to. And here's what's interesting to me when I asked my own personal husband about this, because I read about it. I was like, 4 minutes, clearly we can do that. I mean, we love each other. So I said to him, hon, I just read this research, can we sit down together and just look at each other for 4 minutes? Do you know what he said to me? Why? Because I'm your bride, first of all. And if you know my personal husband, he's got a PhD in animal science, and he is specifically ruminant nutrition, which means we've got a spreadsheet for fucking everything, okay? If it doesn't add up, it doesn't play in our family, which is a big problem because he married me. But, so we're sitting there, and he's like, okay, I'll fine, okay. I set the timer, we're gonna do this 4 minutes. We sit down, he says to me, wait, just a second. What? What am I looking for? Is this a new shirt? Did you get a haircut? Like, I wanna just know, like, what are the parameters here? Just look at me, hun. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, just 4 minutes, I'll set the fucking timer. Like, it's just, that's all. He's like, okay. So we start, and he says, well, just one more second. What? And I swear to the Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, he said this. Can we take breaks? It's called a divorce. So here's what's interesting in this process is that typically when you look at somebody you love, if you were to manage this process and you look, and I mean, it doesn't even have to be a partner. If you think about your brother, if you think about your parents, if you think about anybody that you love, what would it feel like to sit and look with them for 4 minutes? And here's what's gonna happen. The first 30 seconds, so the data is really interesting because they've done this across the globe with very many different people. And in the first 30 seconds, it's uncomfortable. Okay, so this happens. Just like, remember when I just asked you to do this 30 seconds ago? And you laugh. You say things like, this is so long. Did you start the timer? If you can make it, if you can push through and make it to about the 1 minute 30 mark, what happens is, here's the little tip for free. Do not say what you see, okay? Because when we haven't looked for a long time, we haven't seen, okay? So what's gonna happen is stuff will shoot out of your mouth that you're probably not prepared for. So like stuff like this, like, holy shit, you're old. Don't say that. And if you notice things coming out of orifices that weren't historically there, you also don't speak about those things, okay? You do like this, oh. Okay? But here's the cool thing about it. If you can make it to the 3.5 to 4 minute mark, you will start to look and see. And what happens is you start to leak out your balls. Listen, I mean, I cannot wait. This is the next merch line proposition, #leakyballs. I think we'd fucking sell out of it. I really am confident. Because, again, you know this to be true. I had a 12-year-old patient teach me this one time after I chased her down the Deerfoot. Got her back into the locked psychiatric inpatient unit, and she kicked the shit out of me again. And I was sitting insecure with her, and I said, what am I missing? And she turned to me and said, the only time she spoke in that whole 6-week admission, she said, don't you know that Mad is just Sad's bodyguard? And since that time, I've never met a Mad that wasn't sad. And part of our ability to look and see is this massive superpower of being able to turn mad to sad. I want you to watch this experiment that was done in 2015 across the globe in 256 cities, long before a third world war was ever on the table, long before COVID disconnected us even further. The only task across 256 cities was to set up a place in the community where people could look at each other for 1 minute. Watch what happened. So good, right? And I think what's so clearly beautiful about that is when I think about the war in Ukraine, I often think about, what can we do? How can we make a difference? And we really talked about this as a team. Did we talk about that tonight? And if you've heard me speak before, you know how often I joke about my Ukrainian chassis. How my baba, my kids have a baba, I had a baba, and there's something so personal about this for me as I watch this unfold. And so this is one of the best places I've found that we have given as a team. It's called the Humanitarian Coalition. And it's Canadian founded, and it all goes specifically. I think these resources are used the best in all of the research that we did. So I wanted to give you that opportunity if you can. So again, using your camera, which we did do you see this shit that we're doing? You don't have to do this. I just wanted you to know if this was ever something you wanted to consider, because at the end of that, when I watched people look around the world, it really made me think about all of the things that we have that so many people right now don't. And I think that this quote by Eric Pearl really reminded me about the power in looking and seeing. Right? He said, in essence, healing is this. It is the release or removal of a block or interference that has kept us separate from the perfection of the universe. Because when you are seen, that is the perfection of the universe. When you watch that video, and how hard it is to sit down, how brave it must have been in a square in Dubrovnik to sit down and look at somebody who doesn't even look like you or sound like you or smell like you, and just look and see. But it is so remarkably disarming to be seen. And it is so remarkably powerful that I don't think we have any idea how much each of us possess that ability. It's interesting because when we started tonight, I said, disconnect is the biggest issue that we face. But one of the calls to action is we actually have to disconnect to reconnect. There needs to be a necessary, on purpose idea of looking and seeing. And the ones who need it the most are the hardest to give it to. It doesn't mean you forgive or condone. It doesn't mean that you put yourself in positions where it's not safe. That's very important. It doesn't mean that sometimes relationships will have to end. That's not what we're talking about. When you alter your perception from a place of empathy and connection and grace, it changes everything for you. I don't actually give a shit about them. Because if you are not okay, the people you love and you lead and you serve, they don't stand a chance. You become the most important person on the planet when we're thinking about all the people that you're walking home. And when we started to talk about this night and what it meant to be back in person and create a platform where we could talk about reconnection, where we could inspire people. How do you do that? Because it's like, single-handedly, you and I can't undo systemic oppression. Single-handedly, we can't fight racism. Single-handedly, we can't, change the life of a babe or a family who's experienced multiple generations of abuse, neglect, and trauma. You're not that fucking good. Okay? I'm good. But I'm not that good. We were never meant to do any of this alone. And so we started talking a lot about, who do we sit with? Who do you sit with when, not if, you're going to doubt this process? Who do you sit with when it feels empty, when you get kicked in the shins again, when the anniversary comes up, when you wonder if you make a fucking difference, when you hate everybody and you want to throat punch people? Who are your people? Because when you sit with the winners, the conversation is different. And I got to tell you, I met Chow Louis at just the right time. She is a phenomenal woman who was born in Vietnam and immigrated with her family, and is probably one of the most remarkable people I've met. She will stand on a similar stage, the same stage, in fact, as me tonight, but her ability, what she's went through to get here, is so different than mine. Her story, yeah? And she is the remarkable co-owner of a family-run business that now has stores across Canada. And they create jewelry in an effort to connect people. And she said to me on the first, not very long after we met, do you know what would be cool? If someday we created a collection where people could give it to the people they love, if they ever wondered if they mattered. So that in times when they felt like they couldn't be with each other physically, they would be connected. So she and I are going to talk about that a little bit, but I really want you to meet her. I want you to hear her story. And we've created a little video piece. This amazing crew at the Creative Hive have created this video piece, and then she's going to tell you her story. Take a look.
I believe that when you hear somebody else's story and when we create a safe enough place for people to share, I believe that it can change a perspective, it could change a life.
100 new colors in me.
And then I met her in person for the first time, and it was so genuine and authentic. And I just really felt that I had someone in my corner that truly wanted to learn and understand and make the world just a little bit better.
Shine, unlike any other, something undiscovered, left to crystallize.
I think because she values connection, she values learning, she's not closed-minded, and she truly wants people to feel seen and heard, and that is life-changing.
Give it time, put it under pressure, hold it to the fire, a diamond in disguise.
So I'm the mom of two beautiful girls, ages 9 and 7. I'm a wife to my husband. And when it comes to Paris Jewelers, I feel that I am so blessed to be at the center of a wonderful group of people that come together and do what we love, which is celebrate moments through jewelry.
Meant to shine.
When my daughters, they ask me what I do for work, I do deal with jewelry, but I also want them to know the good that we do, the stories that we share, and how it does make an impact and a difference. I truly believe that if you can't see it, right, you can't be it.
The rarity, the clarity, it's priceless.
Our very first store was in a town in St. Albert, Alberta. We started in a tiny 400 square foot store. My mom, she didn't speak English. So when we opened that first store, this modest store, she bought a Vietnamese English dictionary and she used that to translate with customers. And that's how she served customers for the first 2 to 3 years in business.
Shine, unlike any other, something undiscovered, left to crystallize.
You know what? We saw my mom work really hard. We grew up and we got her work ethic, and then we saw her really try to make every customer happy. And even when she didn't speak the same language, we saw that heart, we saw her laughter, we saw her smile, we saw her try really, really hard to just ensure customers were leaving happy.
Give it time, put it under pressure, hold it to the fire, diamond in disguise, meant to shine.
And it was only recently that we really shared our story and our origin and where we came from and how we immigrated from Vietnam, and how, my mom didn't really speak English. So these are stories that we're sharing now. And We truly believe that through sharing stories, we're connecting with people, we're giving people the opportunity to learn about us, and in turn, we get the honor of learning about other people as well.
Shine, unlike any other, something undiscovered, left to crystallize.
The word racism means so many different things to me, but the first thought that comes to mind, if I'm being totally honest, is it's just normal. I grew up with it. It was super normal. I was always different. I was always having to explain my name, having to explain the way I looked, my features, my eyes, and it just became normal. Even though it's hard when we stand up and share our story, it does make a difference. And if by us being brave and authentically sharing who we are in our story made a difference in one person that day, maybe that's one child that doesn't get bullied that day, and I think that'd be worth it for me.
Meant to shine. Meant to shine.
I think that when somebody gives you the gift of time, that is one of the only gifts that you can give, but you can't take back, so it means something. It's not about me, it's just about the world that we want to create for, my kids, for our future generations, and how I don't want them to go through what I went through. I want them to feel accepted, and I want them to feel proud to share their story and their differences.
To shine.
My dream for myself is always to have my daughters see me, be proud of me. I do work a lot and I do work hard, but I want them to know that it's for something, that it's for a legacy that I want to leave for my family and for them and for every single employee at Paris Jewelers.
You're amazing. You're amazing. I love you.
Okay, Ciao Louie! Ciao Louie, ladies and gentlemen! Son of a bitch. I went back there to change, and you know what Dale just said to me? Well, that looks Ukrainian. All right. So I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take that.
Yeah.
How was that?
It was good.
Well, you crushed it.
You think so?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So here's what I really want to talk about, I think, a little bit around this place of connection and why we first met each other in the Hive, and I knew some of the amazing things that you've been doing, and I was there to meet with Jillian Harris that day, and you came up to me out of the boardroom. You're like, "Hi, are you talking to Jillian Harris today?" I was like, "Yeah, I am. Dr. Jody, I just love you." I was like, "Fuck, you want to talk to Jillian Harris?" And then the next thing that you said out of your mouth, I think, changed everything. You said to me, "Do you know that she just addressed Asian hate on her page? And I have never felt more seen." Mm-hmm. And you and I had talked to each other for like maybe 20 seconds, and it like stopped me in my tracks because I started thinking, there's this powerful woman, beautiful, her family's here, they're doing this photo shoot, everything's fantastic. Life is obviously so great. And when we started talking about that, I was like, oh my God. The things, since that time, we have spent a lot of time together talking about overcoming obstacles, being a woman, being in a business where you lead people who question you all the time. How do you sort of navigate some of those things? Can you tell me a little bit about, I think, we can't address what we don't acknowledge. What is some of the hardest moments? What is like the stories that people don't know? Why didn't you make this brand public for such a long time?
Yeah. Okay. So why didn't I make the brand public? Because I think like growing up, we were always just in it and we were working so much, but I was scared. I was so scared that if we shared that we weren't from here originally, we weren't from Canada originally, that people wouldn't support our business. And I had a lot of employees that depended on me for their livelihood, and I take that so seriously. And we would get messages, from people or sometimes customers saying like, "We know you're not Canadian, don't use the Canadian flag in your logo, please." And it really scared us. So it's only been in the last 4 or 5 years that you would see us use our picture and share our story.
I know. And I think when we started talking about those things, I think that's a definition for me of white privilege, because I never even considered, when you told me that you gave your daughters Canadian names because you and your sister and your brother struggled so significantly with being made fun of and, all those things, like, I don't think about shit like that because I never had to. And it's remarkable to me that you come through adversity, you come through racism that still happens all the time. And how, talk to me about perseverance. What does it take to stay in the game? Like that, I mean, this is the question. I mean, I think we were talking about that all night, but from your perspective, I want to know, on those hard days, what keeps you going?
On the hard days now, it keeps me going because I know that so many people will look at us and will look at our company, and I'll get messages from people that say, I want to work for your company because I'm an immigrant too, and I want to work at a place where I can feel seen and feel safe. That really keeps me going. And I work really hard, and I saw my mom work hard, and I want my daughters to work really hard too. Work ethic's important to me, but I don't want them to work harder just because they're a woman or because they're Asian. Right?
Exactly.
And I want to make a difference there.
I know, I love that. And again, I think here's the beautiful thing. You can't tell people how to do it, you got to show them.
That's right.
And I think one of the things that we really aligned around so much was when I said to her, one of the best compliments I've ever gotten in my life is when people have met me, they've said, you are who I hoped you'd be. Isn't that cool? You are who I'd hoped you'd be. And so when you do this stuff, if you have to, you teach somebody and you're somebody different in your public position, which is often sometimes true as a teacher or as a first responder or a nurse or whatever you do in the run of a day, yeah? And you try to be professional. I don't fucking do that very well either, but I think sometimes people are and I really want to sit with the people that are who I'd hoped they would be. Who you say you are publicly and who you will authentically show up as, knowing that it's not going to be perfect. You are going to fuck it up. And I think this is what you and I love so much about each other is I can't tell you how many conversations were she would say, Dr. Jody, can I talk to you for a second? And I was like, you stop calling me Dr. Jody, Chow Louie. And she said, as soon as you stop calling me Chow Louie, I'll stop calling you Dr. Jody. But she said, I feel like I am failing at every juncture. And I was shocked when we had some of those early conversations. I was like, you feel like you are. And I said to her, then it became sort of this one-upmanship. I was like, oh yeah? Let me tell you about, and there was this solidarity, I think, around this idea that, particularly in the last year, there is so much that we think we're not getting right.
Right. What's a good day? My kids get to school on time? 20% of the time, and then I go to work and I have meetings and I miss meetings all the time, and I'm like, Dr. Jody, I need you.
And I think so much about what happens in that process is that we live in this curated world where we assume that everybody else got their shit together because we've been inundated, even in our lifetime. If I think about, when I went, okay, so listen to me. In grad 93, a dream was like a river. I came to this town to start my college career, okay? Billy Bob's, it's... I spun many a fucking Wrangler around that. Deny, Leah, Rattray. You betcha. Anyway, I will tell you, even then, we didn't have social media. There was not the constant bombardment. I don't think I got a computer till grad school. And this is a massive influx of data and constant comparison that none of us grew up with. And many of our kids didn't either. And now their little brains are trying to figure out how to navigate Snapchat and TikTok and constant comparisons between each other, right? And as women building companies, as people trying to navigate motherhood and sisterhood and friendships and how do we sort of break through barriers and ceilings and racist ideals, we think that everybody's doing it better than we are, and I think it is paralyzing. I think we stop trying sometimes because obviously you're fucking doing it better than me. Obviously you're doing it better than me. Obviously, because everything is so curated. You look, I mean, I say this quite often, I think you should, if you're gonna take a family picture and put it on the interweb, on Instagram, you should have to post the image that was taken 2 times prior to the one you post. When you're somebody's throat punching each other, and you ask Leah Graff, because she takes all of my pictures, and the amount of time that she's heard me say to Aaron, how about I take a fucking picture with me and the kids, because I don't think you're making a Christmas card. And I think so much about this is there's an authenticity that needs to happen in the way that we show up in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when you can say to somebody and look them in the eye and say, you know what, you're doing amazing. And you know what, I'm gonna take 20 seconds out of my day to send you a voice note and make you feel seen. That's where the magic happens, right? Mm-hmm. Like you are giving someone the gift of kindness and the gift of time. And
yeah.
I think that that is beautiful.
You do that all the time. You are so good at that. And I think when we started to talk about what could we do together that would mean that people could feel this idea of connection, you said to me, do you think we could create a collection together? And I was like, do you think we could fucking create a collection together? Yes, I do. And I would like it to look like the ring on your left hand. One of these things are not like the other. Can somebody send Aaron Grant in here? And so she said, let's start small. And so you said, I would love to talk about a connection collection. So tell me about it. How did you came up with all of this and you just kept meeting with our team and making us feel as though we had some input. And she's like, yeah, what do you guys think? And then she's like, here's what I think. And we're like, of course you do.
Like I see life through jewelry. So and I think that Dr. Jody and Jody. Yes! Could not be more different. We have different stories. Like she's a doctor. I'm not even allowed to sign paychecks at my company, there are some subtle differences here, right? But when we connected, we became a really good support and we had a really good friendship and we learned a lot. So it was really, really great. And I thought about her often. We would send voice notes back and forth. So I thought, how incredible would it be, because we are so far away from the people that we love, that we created a collection that when every single time you put it on, you would feel connected to those that you loved. And
you designed it specifically.
Specifically with these links. Everything's linked together. And I know that there are some things that Dr. Jody says all the time, like wearing her heart on her sleeve. So I put a heart on this bracelet so that you could wear your heart on your sleeve. And what's special about it is it comes off. So my daughter was having a hard time at school with some friend things. I mean, this happens when you're 9. So I took the heart off my bracelet and I tucked it in her backpack and I told her, I'm going to be with you today. Even though I'm not with you. You're going to school, I'm going to work, but I'll be with you today. So that's why mine doesn't have a heart today. My daughter has it as I'm here.
I love it. And you made it size inclusive, which I love because it can change all different sizes. And then you said we need this, and then we need the ears because I always wear the hoops.
Yeah, and the hoops is because
you can feel like shit and you put on a good set of hoops, girl. That dress us up tights.
That was in the dress code.
It's fine. So, can we tell them when this launches? And then we're going to let these guys get another drink or go home, whatever really needs to happen. Look at you. Thanks for staying.
So it's launching on Tuesday, April the 5th, but we do have a limited quantity here because we wanted to give everybody here just, first dibs on it.
I was in our store in Red Deer today, and I had customers approach me and our team and say, like, when can we get this connection collection? I'm like, April 5th, unless you're coming to the event. I'm sorry.
I know. And all of our VIPs got the bracelet. And we were able, this was Chow's idea. She said, can you give us a list of some of the most amazing educators and first responders that you've ever met in your life? And we would love to send them one of the pieces first. So there's many people across this country that got pieces this week. And it was so funny because so many people, and some of you are here, were like, I didn't pay for that. Was I supposed to, did I steal something from Pierce Jewelers? I didn't put that in my cart. And it's so interesting because people are suspicious when you're kind. They're like, what do you want from me? Do I need to post this on Instagram? No! You're amazing. You get to wear it. And so we also, do you want to talk about these? The launching of these, or no, were we talking about that at all? No? Okay. Okay. Well, I don't fucking know how to run this deal, you know what I mean? That's why
Just always off script.
Yeah, it's fine. I feel like we had a conversation about this. Don't say anything about the necklaces.
Welcome to my life.
Yeah, okay, it's fine.
Anyways, okay.
So there's these two, but apparently they're not ready. I don't know. Something's happening, stay tuned. Can you edit? They can edit this. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Okay.
Just another 4-letter F word, it's fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
From the bottom of my heart, thank you. I'm so grateful you were here today.
I'm so grateful for you.
Wine is waiting backstage.
Wine? Okay, perfect.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Let's wrap it up. So what I really want you to know is that tonight we were only going to make this a live event. And then the question around so many people who, are on our coffee chats. If you've watched throughout COVID, we did lives Monday to Sunday, 7 days a week. And I have to tell you, so many people have said to me, that was so critically important to them. I need you to know it was critically life-saving for me. So when you would show up most every day of the week at 7:30 in the morning and have coffee with me and put up with all the fucking shit that my kids were doing and only 2 of you reported me to the college, it was so nice, So that was good. And then we had a conversation about, okay, so maybe we should do this again in Saskatoon. So we're working out all those details. And I don't know if you remember this, Eileen, but we were like, we're all, okay, then we can't do relit because probably most of the time people are not going to be able to come and teachers don't want to be together. They're exhausted, they hate people. And then we were like, fuck it, let's do it. So that is happening at the end of August at the River Cree. And so not only did we decide to do it a little bit, we're going to do it 700 people or 1,000 people at a casino live. How fun does that sound? So those are the things that we have on our plate coming up. And I would love for you to send us your people because I think this is how we start to create a movement is you do it one sweet step at a time. So I want you to know that this idea of feeling seen is something that so many of us possess. In fact, all of us do. Everybody here tonight has the ability to make somebody else feel seen. And for me, it is something that is felt by the blind, heard by the deaf. It is possessed by all, and it's mastered by none. We will never get good at it. You can never do it enough, especially if it's genuine. So if you're comfortable, what I'd like you to do is link arms with the person beside you. And if you're not, it's okay. Just touch elbow to elbow. Oh my God, Marty Pillar!
She forgot I was coming.
No, I did not. That was, I surprised. It was the surprise. Ladies and gentlemen, Marty Pillar. Marty Pillar is the COO of Carrington and Company. And if you know our story, you know that we met in a hockey rink when our kids were playing hockey together. They were, I don't know, 5 at the time. And it was an 8 o'clock game, and we were supposed to run the clock together. I didn't have a bra on. I didn't even know if I was on the right ice. And Marty comes with 2 coffees, all the instructions on how to run the fucking clock. And I was like, oh, do you want to work together? Could you organize some files? Because I see some clients and I don't fucking know where they are.
It's funny because it's true now.
It is true. It's like, it's funny because it's true. I was like, I know, we probably shouldn't talk about that. And how many years ago was that?
6.
Almost 7 years ago, we fell in love, and now this woman single-handedly is running a multi-million-dollar company as my COO. And I think one of the keys I think to our respective successes is that she believed in me before I believed in myself, and I think feeling seen is the answer to it all.
Yes.
So, what we want you to do with your linked arms. Oh, I see. They were uncomfortable because it was getting warm, was it? Welcome to your new friends. Some of you fuckers aren't doing it. It's fine. It's fine. What I want you to say out loud with me is what you see on the screen behind you, okay? And then we are going to wrap it up. Marty's got some things to tell you, but this is what I hope you leave with in your heart. The definition of feeling seen. Read it with me. Feeling seen. It is something that is felt by the blind, heard by the deaf, possessed by all, mastered by none. Now let's go do it.